A very warm welcome to this World Game Changers podcast, where your host, Paul D. Lowe, embraces many crucial conversations that compassionately contribute towards creating a better life and world. Paul's intention's very simple: to help get people's inspirational insights and motivational messages out into the world, so others may benefit.
Welcome back to another World Game Changers podcast. I am your guest host, Bob Conlin. I am a professional certified coach with the International Coach Federation, an author, a father, a husband, a lover of all things relationship. And I'm so glad you're back here for another awesome episode. Today, a little bit of a twist, I have a guest with us for a two-part series chatting all about intercultural relationships. I have Rubria Mendoza here. She's got 20 years experience in a variety of areas such as accounting, organizing events, expos, and process management. She's also, she co-serves with me on World Game Changers North America as a secretary and treasurer. It's been such a delight to get to know Rubria, and there's these people that you meet and just have an instant connection with, and I'm so delighted to be able to share her with you all today. Rubria was born in Mexico, right? Yep. And is married to an American. Yes. And we wanted to talk about what are some of the things that come up in having that intercultural relationship. What are some of the challenges? What are some of the assets, the benefits from having such a mix like that? And I'm super excited to jump into this conversation today with Rubria. So Rubria, welcome. So good to have you.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks for that warm welcome. And thanks for having me at your podcast. I'm very excited to share a little bit about not just me, but my family, because this is what it is, right? The intercultural relationship translated in our marriage and now with our kids, and how we've been navigating through all this, right?
Yeah, totally right. Like what we get to learn about ourselves, what we get to learn about our partners. The thing that comes up for me right away, and you mentioned earlier, is like our identity, like what happens to our identity in an intercultural relationship like this, and how is our concept of identity shaped and formed, based on this experience that we're having.
Yes, so that is such a great a starting point, for this, because from our experience, and particularly from my side, right, my experience, I'm gonna go back a little bit to how all this adventure started. So as you mentioned, I was born in Mexico, and I lived in Mexico until I got married. So once I got married, I moved to the United States, and it has been a great journey, but I have to say those first years, I remember, a lot of people saying, well, once you pass the first year, you made it, kind of thing. And well, then the first year passed, and then people will come and say, well, once you pass the first 3 years, and I'm like, oh, geez. But it was thinking back on those years, how important, and this would be, my advice to people who is in the same situation, whether they, you are the person who are moving, or you are the person who is receiving, right, the other person. And this doesn't necessarily mean countries, right? When you accept to start a relationship with someone it comes from a completely different background, different culture. The key for me, and I'm so glad that you mentioned identity as a starting point, because the key will be not to lose your own identity, right? Not to try to please the other person, and just for, hey, we're still like in a honeymoon mode kind of thing, and make things work and everything will go, will get fixed at some point. No, it's not, right? It's really important to keep honest with ourselves, to not force the other person to embrace our traditions, at least in my case, right? My traditions, my culture, but to make him part of it, right? And I learned this, as every marriage, there has been ups and downs, and I learned this the hard way.
Yeah. As we often do, right?
Yeah. But I'm glad, right? I did that, because now with our kids, I'm hoping I will not, or they will see, right, that there is a different way to do it, and it will, bring joy and benefits to their lives, and to, what their future will bring.
Yeah.
In terms of relationships.
Yeah. You mentioned like, how one of the key takeaways is so important to not lose your identity in the process, and for both people, right? And what are some of the ways that you are able to infuse like your identity into your relationship?
Yes. For example, I have, in Mexico, and particularly in my family, right there, we have a specific traditions that we hold, different ways to do things. Just a simple example, we are a big family. We love gatherings. We love to hug people, to be close to them, to sit next to them, to touch a lot, right? While we are talking, and hey, what's up? And then, all kind of those things. That when I I move here, and we start, like, okay, this is it. A lot of those were like, oh, wait, I don't like, big reunions. I don't like this, and like, so there were times that I feel like, well, maybe I can restrict myself from doing this. Maybe I can, start to not taking it the best way, right? Like, saying, okay, I will do the change on my side. And of course, what happened create a big issue, because I was not happy.
Sure.
He was not happy because I was not happy. It was a lot of conflict, and then we will be traveling to Mexico, and I will be like, geez, why are we doing this? I like to meet with my friends. I like to see my family, to come together, and so through the years, and I realized, well, this is not working, obviously, right? And the solution is not gonna be just, well, then let's break and we can continue doing whatever we like. No. We talk about it, and
so what was that conversation like?
Well, not nice. Not nice, but I mean, it was that point that I said, I'm not happy. I like to be there, even if I not necessarily need to be in Mexico, but I like calling my family for hours, right? Or calling them every day, or seeing them on the at Zoom or whatever, right? Calling my friends there, and being in keep contact to the network I was in before I got married. And I want to do that. If you want to join, it's perfectly okay. If you don't want to join, I respect that. And he expressed the same thing. He said, well, I do not like to do that. Say hi for me when you do it. I'm okay. You feel free to do it. Say hi for me. Doesn't mean I don't, like your friends. I do. I love your family, but I don't want to be part of it, right? Getting into this that I like. I don't feel like it. I will stay away from those calls, but doesn't mean I don't love them. And whenever we go to visit your family, to be there in Mexico, I love to be there. I love to hang out with everybody, but not to force each other. Basically, that was the basic agreement, right? Not to force each other into, hey, one of my issues was why you don't have any friends, right? Why you never hang out with people outside of, and he's like, well, I do have friends, but we do, things different. And I'm like, well, okay. So for me to understand that, then for both of us to find the balance, it took time, and
Sure.
it took, communication.
Yeah.
Definitely. And most of it, I have to admit, most on my side, to be patient and say, yeah, you cannot, let's stop and be respectful, and doesn't mean we can still love each other, and doesn't mean it's not a difference that is killing us.
Yeah. The thing I'm present to in your sharing is like how underneath a lot of this was really uncovering or discovering what you both actually need. Like what are your needs and desires in that moment? And it's not that your needs are right or his are wrong or vice versa, but it's actually, and I think in many relationships, regardless, like that's such an important thing to discover is what we actually need. How do we get those needs met? How do we communicate them? How do we help our partners get those needs met? And yeah, so that was coming up for me. And I think like as you're sharing, I'm even thinking about even in my marriage with my wife, like she's third generation Polish, I think, is it? And her great grandmother, came over, or no, her grandmother came over from Poland after World War II. And even though her family's very Americanized, there's still, and I think with any family dynamic, there's still differences, many differences in the way that like that family dynamic functions, right? Like how I was raised, how she was raised, some of the family traditions, the family culture really provides, I think an opportunity, very much like what you're saying is like, what is our actual identity in this relationship, right? Like what are the parts of us that we want to make sure that we honor and that we bring into the relationship, and what are the parts of us that we need to invite our partner in to further accept or know more of us. Yeah.
Yes, I totally agree.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
And another thing we were chatting before we started was this the important topic of how communication is impacted having having these like different backgrounds. And if surprise, this is going to be a 2-part series, so we've got about 3 to 4 minutes to talk about this next topic on communication. So when you think about in an intercultural relationship how communication's impacted, I'm so curious like what you notice and what you've learned about yourself and your partner.
Yes, so communication is I think a challenge for any relationship.
True. True.
And with intercultural, in our experience, it's been a little bit more. And that is because, you know, our culture, my culture is, you know, we have a tendency to be, you know, to please people, to go with the, okay, what do you want? Let's say, what do you want for dinner? You want pizza? You want pasta? Even though at the, you know, inside of me, I want pasta, I say, what would you like? Right. And then he said pizza. Okay, then yeah, I want pizza. So learning that, you know, it's okay to learn different ways. It's okay to express, you know, our real uh, with a real self, right? And say, hey, this is what I would like, and that translates to everything.
Mhm.
Communication, so important to say, okay, yes, I have this way to say it, and it's not the correct way, right? He used to have a tendency to say things in just so short way that I was like, oh, yes, is he upset? Maybe I did something. Maybe I said something. And it was not that, right? It was just, you know, it's the way he is. Like, yeah, I mean, yes, no. And I wanted to see, oh, well, tell me the entire story of why yes and why not. And that's a cultural thing. We want to expand, we want to go into further details. If I want to invite you to, let's say, if I want to sell you something, I will invite you to have lunch with me, and then I'll talk for an hour, and then about something else, and then 5 minutes I say, hey, I'm selling this lotion, you want to buy it?
Yeah.
That's us, right?
Yeah.
And with him, I mean, saying yes, no, it was a clash at the beginning. We've learned through the years, and I mean, we're getting better.
Sure. Yeah, I bet. So how long have you been together?
12 years.
12 years. And
Yeah.
I bet it's still a dynamic to explore, right? I can
Oh,
imagine.
for sure.
I can't imagine. That's why I think it's so important. Like in any relationship is to be open to learning and to be open to understanding. And communication is such a critical component of that. And when you have, you know, when our identities are shaped in different cultures, right? And then our communication is also shaped and molded from a different culture. Like it's such a ripe ground for for us understanding, for learning and growing, if you choose it to be that way. I could see how this could very much be
a killer.
An opportunity that like kills or destroys a relationship. That could be very challenging so to be able to, you know, explore, be open, be curious with our partners in this way is even more critical.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's also a great opportunity, at least it has been for me, to learn what I'm capable of doing in terms of learning, you know, how to live with someone, and how to, you know, say things in a different way that is still, you know, mean the same.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, that's going to wrap up our episode part 1 today with Rubria. Thank you so much for being here. Tune in for episode or part 2 of this, where we're going to talk about children in an intercultural relationship and the impacts that go with that, and as well as language, how important, like, of course, communication, but also how important language is, our understanding of language, and the way we communicate our language, and then honoring our language as well. So tune in for next time. This has been a World Game Changing podcast. I've been your guest host, Bob Conlin. If you want to continue this conversation or any conversation about relationships, feel free to reach out. You can reach me at bob@conlin, CONLIN coaching.com. Thanks so much.
Thanks very much for listening to this World Game Changers podcast episode. Hopefully you found it interesting and helpful. Drop a line to paul@worldgamechangers.org with any thoughts or questions you may have, and he'll be more than happy to respond. Remember, the world is changing. How will you respond?